World space health bar. Maybe that's of interest. I'll look at that. If nobody has any really outstanding things, I'll just do a short little lecture and just let you work on your stuff. So let's see how this world space health bar. So is it appearing? Let's see. Click on the enemy turret. All the enemies have the health bar. Yep, looks like it. Health bar pivot is here. It's way up here. All right, the canvas. So underneath the enemy prefab, pivot is just an empty transform that's moved 2 units up, 2 meters up above, and this is where we're placing the canvas. So this is just a generic UI canvas. All UIs need to start with a canvas. This one happens to be in world space. Create a gun from scratch. Creating a gun, I could do that Wednesday. The guns happen to be one of the most complicated parts of this game because it happens to be a shooter. But I'll write that down. That will be like all day next Wednesday. I'll go over the gun. Pickups, sure, I'll take a look at. So this is in world space, meaning it's not this large thing up here that gets rendered to the camera. So it can be positioned, and that's why it moves. It's a child of the enemy turrets, or any enemy for that matter. It moves around with it. And let's see, it just has a basic image background and image fill. So if you notice this image fill, you can just scroll it from left to right. And so this red meter, you can change the color to whatever you want it to be. But they're just linking this 0 to 1 value to how much health this actual turret has. And the background is just when you reduce this down, what's behind it. So in this case, it does say it's white, and it's showing as black, but you can see here the source image is this black image. So this color really isn't doing anything. In this case, it's driven completely by this image file. And this one is actually almost the opposite. It's being driven completely by this color. So world space health bar. It needs to know about this image, health bar image. It needs to know about the health bar pivot, transform. It needs to know whether the health bar is visible at full health or not. So it needs to know about health. Where did I miss that? Oh, public health. It needs to know about the actual health of the enemy. So the health script is sitting here. It's referencing this. The image fill, it's referencing this image component. And the pivot is this transform. And whether to hide the health bar when it's full. It's turned on, defaulting to true. So all this does is it knows about all this stuff, and it has its own update loop because it's inheriting from mono behavior. And so this gets updated as quickly as it can every frame that's possible, 30, 60 times a second, however long the game frame rate is. And so this is updating the health bar amount. So it's taking the current health of the health script. Go to health script. All right, it's taking the current health and dividing it by the max health, which seems like you could just do that here in this get ratio. But sure. So it's taking current health of this health object, dividing it by the max health. You get a percentage from 0 to 1. And that's the fill amount that you just saw me playing with. It can only go from 0 to 1, and you already know it will because of the math. And then this rotates the health bar to face the camera player. So why does that matter? So we're not actually interested in having this health bar always orient with the enemy, because if I'm the player, if I look at it from this angle, I'm offset from the health bar. I can't really read it. What I want is I want the health bar to always rotate toward me, the player. So that's what we call billboarding. Always keep a flat graphic directed toward the player. And so we're taking the transform, and there's a function called look at. And as you read it, it does all the rotation math for us. It figures out the rotation to look towards something. That something is the player's camera.main. So if we go to player, main camera, it's tagged as main camera. There's only one per scene, and that's camera.main will access it. So if we're hiding the full health bar, then we set the whole health bar game object active or not on whether the fill amount is at 1 or not. So if this is 1, 1 does not equal 1, that becomes false. And so set active false. If this is not 1, like 0.9 or anything else, 0.9 does not equal 1, evaluates to true. So this becomes true. Pickups. Trying to find like a bone or something on that. Let me, here we go. Let's let me zoom up more on it. So a pickup, if I remember, they were just using the prefab of this. Yeah, like it has a weapon controller, everything. So they're just popping. They have a pickup prefab. What's important at the pickup level is that it's positioned somewhere in the game where that's accessible. It has a collider on it. In this case, just a box and a rigid body. Is kinematic means you can hit into it. This isn't always necessary. Usually I see pickups, there just is triggers turned on, meaning they're like a passive collider. Really interested in just knowing whether we entered their space or not. With a rigid body, sure, for whatever reason, they wanted to have it more part of the physics system. But then there's a script, weapon pickup. And then this mesh here is just saying it's like an empty holder. So whatever you want the pickup to look like, you would drag the prefab underneath it. So all these scripts and everything are useless because they just took the weapon prefab and popped it in underneath, and this actually is connected to the player. So it's just meant to be a visual of what the pickup should be. The real script is right here. All right, so let's see. The prefab for the weapon that would be added to the player on pickup. So what is the weapon controller? So let me move this over. So a weapon pickup looks like it'll have different functionality than a health pickup. Yes, it does. So with this weapon script, is the actual script that's on the prefab, not on the one that's instantiated in the project. So we have some bobbing up and down, frequency, the amount, the speed of it rotating while it's bobbing, the sound it makes, and then the actual prefab that you pick up, which it's none for some reason. So health has a lot of the same stuff. Frequency, amount, rotating, sound effect, and this actually has the prefab that you're picking up, and how much are we healing the person, and underneath it is just the mesh that we're picking up, what it should look like. All right, so weapon pickup on start, so base start. So you open up health pickup. I guess they're inheriting from the same base. Health pickup. Yep, they're both inheriting from pickup. So pickup is where all this bobbing and rotating sound effects and the pickup prefab is coming from. Oh, and that's the VFX spawned on pickup. Okay, that's why when you pick up a weapon, there's no VFX being spawned. When you pick up the health, there's a type of VFX. Then there's a rigid body and collider start position. Yep, component, rigid body, collider, some debug stuff. Sure, the physics setup is for a kinematic rigid body. Sure. And it's a trigger. Yep. And start position is the position of the game object. Yep. And so on update, we're just doing a sine wave to get the up and down motion, multiplying it by the time, the frequency, and some offsets. And you can mess with all this to get a different feeling for the up and down bobbing. Then its current position we have to update as well because it's bobbing up and down, so the Y element's going to change of its position. And that's for colliding with the player, whether it got picked up or not. And then we're rotating it with the rotation speed times it. That's the change in time per frame. And so on trigger enter, when another collider enters the space of this trigger, so this is a pre-built or given to you method for triggers. So on trigger enter exit, but any trigger you can call this on. So get the other collider, get the component on it, get the player character controller, which might be null. Something else might be a bullet, might be an enemy. So that's why they're saying if this is null, meaning whatever it collided with doesn't have a player character controller on it. So if it's not null, so it is the player, then we can call on picked with this player character controller that came from this other collider. And we're going to create an event. We have this event system. So picked up event. I thought was another script. I saw a bunch of events that were being declared. So the event pickup equals this. So it's basically sending out an event that a pickup event happened, and it's saying that this was a game object that was picked up, and the event manager broadcasts the event out. So anyone who's subscribing to this event will receive that a pickup event happened with this game object as the pickup. So on picked, well, it does call this play pickup feedback. And if this bool is true, meaning it's already played, because this can be triggered more than once. So it's only triggered once, and then if it has been, we don't keep triggering it. That's why we just return. Otherwise, if there's a sound effect, we play the sound effect. If there's a VFX, we play the VFX. And then we say that the feedback has happened, so we don't keep repeatedly triggering it. So that's the base class. Now, so the weapon class plays all that code, and then it has some additional code. So for each transform, so set all children layers to default. So go through all the children game objects. And that means like go through that whole hierarchy of the weapon prefab and set its layers to 0, default the layers. So layers over here. So these are used a lot for physics interactions. Like, can the physics interaction be interactable between two different physics colliders on different layers? Or they're also used for rendering and lighting. And that's the start method for weapon pickup. Basically, it's taking that whole weapon prefab that was instantiated, going through it, and like resetting all the layers on it. And so on pickup, which I just went through in the base pickup, it's doing this. So it's overriding. It's not calling the base on it. It's just it's not even doing what was in the base, which was unpicked. Do this player pickup feedback thing. It's not even doing that. So it is calling it here. It's just doing a bunch and then calling it. So weapons manager. So pass in the player character controller. Get the player weapons manager that's on the character controller. We have a reference to it. If that exists, meaning this really was a player, not an enemy or something else that touched it, then we have to use the weapon manager script and add a weapon to the player. And whatever this weapon prefab that's sitting in the prefab, add that to the player's weapon manager. And handling auto switching. So if the player has no weapons currently and just hits the pickup, then make this the current weapon automatically. So the player has something that plays really fast. I'm chasing to get a weapon. I want that weapon to automatically become active. And then play that player pick up the sound effects, the VFX, and then destroy the pickup. For health, we have a certain amount of healing amount. And all we're doing is overriding the unpicked. So the default was just run this method, but we're actually saying get the player character controller that we've just come in contact with, get their health object. So if there is a player health that this is referencing and the player health has dot can pick up, meaning if I go to the health script, can pick up. So if your current health is less than max health, then this can pick up as true. So if you have max health already, this will be false. And there's no reason to allow you to just start picking up the health pickup. So if this was indeed a player that touched it and that player has less than their max health, then allow them to heal this amount, which in this case was defaulted to 40. And then play the pickup feedback, sound effects, VFX, and destroy the game objects. All right, so that is weapons pickup and health pickup, how they're functioning. And for some reason, health pickup has Nav Mesh modifier. Ignore from build. Okay. For some reason, it may impact the nav mesh while weapons don't, or maybe it was just a messy. Maybe the weapons are supposed to have it too. But in either case, it's saying that you should, when the nav mesh gets built, ignore these pickups, ignore these colliders, so that they're not acting like they're in the way of the nav mesh. So the enemies would just move right through it. Why that's way out there. See, as you pick it, you see there's the nav mesh here, and it's kind of overlapping, but it's not part of it. Cool. Any other questions? The AI, and it's got to be a whole class itself. I know in the karting game they go through the reinforcement learning on how they work. These aren't, they're just moving down patrol paths that are defined for them. So, for example, enemies assigned. It's just this hoverbot. This hoverbot here is assigned. This is its patrol path. It does this diamond pattern over and over again. So here are the points. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the enemy that's assigned to it. This is the enemy here. And so the whole nav mesh system is really big. Basically, your level gets baked out. It figures out that's when some of the stuff is blue, like where the AI is allowed to move onto its surfaces. It can see. But the patrol path looks like the enemy controllers have a patrol path. So there's a lot of methods to deal with this. This is going to have to be a class by itself. I was just looking if there's like an update loop or something that's checking how it should move, and it's referencing all these methods dealing with the patrol path. It's all initialized. The navigation modules, get components and children. Better type navigation module. There's a Nav Mesh agent. That's not the navigation. Find references scene. Looks like no one's using it. Let me make sure this is working. Yeah, there's 3 out of 4 detection modules. This scene, let me try the main scene. Everyone's using this script. Must be instantiated at runtime. It's not sitting out here. Yeah, AI is going to be a big topic on this. We just have to. We do a class on creating a gun from scratch, and then we can do a class on AI, the enemy controller script, basically. Undetected a target. So detecting target and losing a target is just moving toward the player. It's not really 0 references, 1 reference. Set path destination closest node. Oh, enemy mobile. So is there another script on here? Oh yeah, it's right there. It's shrunk. Let's see. I was looking at it as a. Oh, okay. Mobile enemies have a separate script. And here's this AI state control. Update AI state transitions, update current state. Okay. This would be something we could dig into. This is like heavy. This is like 2 classes maybe. But yeah, that's is there anything simpler? I'll just write these topics down as they're like their own class themselves. So creating, I guess when you say gun, you mean a prefab. Creating gun prefab from scratch. Enemy AI is working. Right. Just no more simpler questions, smaller ones, and I just covered pickups and the world screen UI, the health UI for the enemies. I'm gonna stop lecturing now.